Hello and welcome back everyone to French Bread's Dark Souls 3 Lorerun. My name is French Bread, or Chris if you prefer. So we are basically right back after where we were in the last episode, after killing the Consumed King. And we've come back to Firelink Shrine to take a look at his items. Once we've looked at those, we will discuss them just a little bit. Soul of the Consumed Osiros, or Siros, I guess is the more correct way to say it. Osiros, maybe it is Osiris. Osiros went mad trying to harness his royal blood for a greater purpose, leading him to the heretics of the Grand Archives, where he discovered the twisted worship of Seath the Pale Drake. So yeah, when we encounter Osiros, he definitely has the look of a dragonoid type creature, except without scales and kind of weird tendrily looking things all over his back and a pair of feathered wings. I don't know about the feathered wings, but the rest of them definitely harken back to the appearance of Seath the Scaleless. And what do you know, indirectly or not, Seath seems to have left his mark even in this current era. So, tip of the hat to the original mastermind character of the Dark Souls universe.
So.
And from the soul of Osiros we can derive White Dragon Breath, sorcery of the deluded, consumed King Osiros. Emits crystal breath of Seath the Scaleless. Crystal breath has piercing qualities. Seath's research seemed to strike a chord with old Big Hat, who, in his mad, disrobed state, made divine works such as this, his own. Osiros was no doubt edified by this. And we can also transpose the legendary Moonlight Greatsword, legendary dragon weapon associated with Seath the Pale Drake. Charge strong attack to its limit to unleash Moonlight Wave. Osiros, the Consumed King, was infatuated with the search for moonlight, but in the end, it never revealed itself to him. And it has the ability to do the Moonlight Vortex. Draw a sword back and thrust to unleash torrential moonlight. Sounds awesome. Unfortunately, we do not have the intelligence to wield it properly. So, in Dark Souls 1, the Moonlight Greatsword, which by the way has been present in every Souls game and in Bloodborne, but in Dark Souls 1 you obtain the Moonlight Greatsword by cutting off Seath's tail. A nigh impossible task unless you have a friendly phantom to help. I mean, it's doable solo, but it is a nightmarish experience, let me tell you. And apparently Osiris sought this his entire life with his power of moonlight, but it seems like it may have rested within him the entire time and he just never noticed it. So moonlight and pale drakes, these are the things that Osiris tried to harness his blood, his royal blood towards, but never quite managed to achieve.
Now.
Osiris, as we know from the items we've obtained, was presumably the husband of Queen Lothric. So we have a kingdom now that is bereft of its king and its queen. And I've been dodging around it, but the most interesting thing Osiris had to offer to us was his perhaps delusional belief that he held Ocelot within his arms, that Ocelot was near. We know Ocelot was the name of the queen's last child, and that she disappeared shortly after giving birth to him. And Osiros seemed to be cradling acted as if he was cradling a child, although we could see evidence of none. And he also seems to have held the belief that Ocelot was the child of serpent men. No, the child of dragons. Cheeky serpent men. So there's a lot to think about just from that. Could it be that the king was performing in collusion with the heretics of the Grand Archives, was performing some kind of experiment to, in his obsession with Seath and the dragons, to create a child of dragons, and he may have done, he may have performed some ritual or laid some kind of spell or curse on the pregnant Queen of Lothric, which led to, or was hopefully going to lead to, the birth of a child of dragons. We've seen strange crossbreed experiments before, basically with Priscilla and, by extension, Yorshka, which, by the by, if you were looking for alternative theories about who Yorshka is and where Yorshka came from, perhaps the mad dabblings of Osiros had something to do with it. It's a stretch, I know, but we don't want to dismiss anything out of hand, right? But did Osiros really have a child with him? Was it just, is he delusional? Well, we know he's delusional, but was he delusional about the presence of Ocelot? Or was there actually some invisible, sightless sight unseen child there? I'm not sure, but what we do know is that as the battle begins, Osiros starts to call out for Ocelot to show himself, to not be shy, etc. What do you have to fear? You are a child of dragons. And once we trigger his second phase, he takes the hand that, previously appeared to be cradling something and violently smashes it into the ground. And the moment that happens, we do not hear any more dialogue out of Osiros himself. He turns into a completely feral, dragon-like creature. Perhaps this indicates that Ocelot was finally teased out. Whatever the case may be for the original Ocelot, one perspective we could have on this is that the king deluded himself into having this bestial split personality, or different aspect of himself that he called Ocelot. So when he teased Ocelot to come out, it brought out his bestial dragon side. Maybe Ocelot really is inside of him. Maybe some twisted experiment fused the child and the father into one being. Sorry, we don't know for sure. It's also, like I said, entirely possible that Osiros is a nutbag through and through, and Ocelot, whatever his final fate may have been, is elsewhere. But let's check out this humble-looking knight who's sitting at the base of this goblet or chalice vessel like display. And we get an emote called Path of the Dragon. A meditative stance. We'll have to keep that in mind for later. Interesting room, by the way. Much of the wall and much of the floor is covered in these inscribed stones. What they might say on them is hard to isn't really possible to discern. But I suppose I have some suspicions, and we are also encountering very thick tree growth or overgrowth. It's very familiar, isn't it? It reminds me a bit of the area underneath Firelink Shrine in Dark Souls 1. Not saying it is, I'm just saying it has a callback to that in terms of appearance. But hey, is that it? Did we merely defeat Osiros simply to get a couple of dragon scales and an emote? I don't think so. And as you're about to see, there is indeed more to it. Now, I actually found this in my first playthrough, and I did it quite naturally too. It wasn't a no friends told me about it, and for once no message told me about it. I just kinda, any point in the game where I see like a treasure chest stacked up against a wall, I remember the shortcut to the Great Hollow, and I go ahead and hit that wall behind the chest. And boy, did it pay off this time. Because here we are in one of the most important and unique areas in the whole of Dark Souls 3. The Untended Graves. I wonder if any of you remember way back in the beginning of this lore run, the very first episode in fact, when we were in the Cemetery of Ash, I came to a side area. I gazed up on the wall, just confirming something with myself. I was looking at the general architecture, or the, not the architecture, but the shape of the cliff face, because I wanted to see how it connected to this area. Oh yes. Mindfuck Central, everybody. And right up the path here is our old grave, surrounded by Corvians. What was this Corvian telling stories about, I wonder? Painted world as per usual? Were they telling stories about us, the player character? Let us not underestimate angered Corvians. Your buddies are gone, my friend. in our coffin, the Ashen Estus ring. Let's take a look at that real quick. Gray crystalline ring crafted from shards. Increases FP restored by Ashen Estus flask. Once a treasure brought before Lothric's queen, she had it enshrined in the cemetery of Untended Graves, so that one day an Unkindled might profit from its use. And just like it was, just like we saw, I don't have one on me, with the Hidden Blessing, we get a little more insight into Queen Lothric. Seems like she was the only one who was seeking to assist the Unkindled in their duty. To that end, she placed the Ashen Ring within these untended graves. And oh look, it's one of my favorite enemy types. The Grave Warden. We're gonna back off because this dude's hyper armor is going to activate in short order. Make life difficult for us. You know, dogs aside, I've actually been very excited, but also somewhat dreading finally reaching this area. Just because of how truly important it is to the lore, I think. It makes it both exciting, but also kind of intimidating to approach as someone doing a lore run and trying to give, you know, not answers, but at least speculation and intelligent insight into what might be going on. And there are just so many possibilities for the Untended Graves that it's hard knowing necessarily where to start or what to say. What I am going to point out right away, though, is obviously we're running into some kind of paradox. Because Firelink Shrine is our home base, and last time we checked, our home base was not swallowed in absolute darkness, correct? And it also did not have any connection to Lothric. The only way we could get to Lothric from Firelink Shrine is to use the bonfire to warp there. So immediately, before anything else, we're faced with the issue, or the question, of the reality of Firelink Shrine. In the Cemetery of Ash, in fact. You're forced to wonder whether or not the Firelink Shrine we are in is the, quote, real one, unquote. And by the way, yes, a little quiet as I try to focus on dealing with these crystal lizards. Ah! Thank goodness that the ejection code worked for us there. I would not have wanted to fall through the world. But, yeah, we were immediately faced with the fact that, okay, our Firelink Shrine seems to be the real one, right? It's the one with NPCs that are all like, yo, let's link fire, get these lords back in town. And it's not covered in darkness, and for that matter, neither is the rest of the world, Lothric and its surrounding areas, so that makes us think that perhaps this area is some sort of alternate dimension, or peek into an alternate world, right? On the other hand, this one actually connects to the world, unlike Firelink Shrine. So this is very clever, I think. I think this is a deliberate move on the part of the game creators, Miyazaki or otherwise, to confuse the matter for us, make it difficult for us to discern the truth by placing contradictions in our way. And we are not out of contradictions yet. We'll be encountering them as we go, but we have to wonder, is this an alternate dimension? Is this in the future? Is this in the past? What is all this? Well, we have no way to speculate further until we head deeper in. And also until we deal with Daughter of Crystal. Kriemhild, or Kriemhild. Kriemhild? Kriemhild? Sorry. I'm not the world's best at recognizing how to pronounce these Norse-like names. Gremmy's actually kind of dangerous when you have a weapon this slow. Let's see if we can't force the matter. Dark Spirit, Daughter of Crystal, has perished. I don't think Kriemhild drops any items, but let's do a quick reload just to be sure. We wouldn't want to get cheated out of anything, would we? Appears to have been the souls only. That's fine. Walk down memory lane here. By the by, I don't know if it has any significance whatsoever, but you will recall in the Crucifixion Woods when we were heading through the small little fortress where the Crystal Sage had set itself up at. You recall that we encountered more of this style of hollow enemy, and that I speculated that they may be members of the Undead Legion, perhaps the acolytes that we heard about. I don't know if it's pertinent to draw connections between this enemy type and the Undead Legion, but perhaps there is a connection to be drawn. Perhaps these guys are, in their own way, watching against the abyss, or in this case, gazing into it. Don't know. Just a bit of guesswork there. It's entirely possible that they're just a hollow enemy. There certainly are a lot more of them now. And now we have one of those hidden blessings. Holy water blessed by Queen of Lothric. There is a grave in Lothric that sees no visitors, a dark place where rootless warriors rest. The Queen of Lothric alone cared to wish the poor souls good fortune. I'd say that would be the Untended Graves she's the item's referring to. Still drop the same loot though. Now, through this pathway, who do you expect we might encounter? Well, his form is obscureth by dark. Make no mistake, Gundyr is waiting for us. And I'm not gonna meet him with 4 Estus Flasks. Sorry. Let's go back to the shrine, actually, and spend some of the considerable amount of souls we've acquired.
Welcome. Very well then.
Let's get back to leveling our strength.
Farewell, Ashmi.
And I'm pretty sure I want to get to at least 40
Oh.
strength to wield some of the weapons and shields I want to wield in this playthrough. Before I level any further, was just checking to make sure I had... There wasn't anything else I wanted to purchase. I don't think there is, though, so we'll take ourselves up to 36 strength.
Farewell, Ashmi.
And gear checks out. Alrighty, let's head back. To the Untended Graves. Now, I discussed in the last episode how the dancer, which by the way, you noticed, I'm sure, I tossed her helm on just because I realized how good it looks with this set. I don't particularly want to go faceless or obscured face too often with this character, but for this fashion I cannot help it. It just looks great, doesn't it? I think it does. I think it looks great. That's all that matters. Stupid warden. Seeking to deny me every Estus Flask possible. Oof. Almost got myself killed. Let's cheat and nom on one of these divine blessings. When else are we going to use the bloody things? And we're going to push through back to the boss area. But, as I was saying, like I had said before, the dancer gave me a lot of trouble. But the guy who gave me just as much trouble, if not more, was this version of Gundyr. Now, unlike the dancer, I've run into several friends who had just as much trouble with Gundyr as I did. Some who thought he was fairly easy. I suppose it all depends on what weapon you're using and what level you're at when you encounter him. First time I fought Gundyr, I was probably level 60 or so, and it was a bit of a bear for me. It'll be interesting to see what kind of challenge he is or isn't now that I am whatever, level 77. Let's toss on the Estus ring so we can get a bit more out of this full heal. 11 should be more than enough. As you can see, we have another NPC summon sign, the Sword Master. I guess he could be useful. And he definitely seems to have a new sword in tow. But I'm going to try this fight without him. And actually, it's been a while. I'm going to try the fight with this strategy. Can I have both? I cannot. So Gundyr, he's going to start out somewhat familiar, but he's going to shift into a completely different beast once we trigger his phase 2. Whoops, way too soon. Let me get my bearings here. Can't let him push us around like this. Phase 1. Actually, if I was smart, I would have equipped Aldrich's Ruby, which allows you to regain HP after critical attacks. It's a nice way to keep yourself topped off while, at least with more HP, without having to also stop to heal. Yeah, mistimed and dead as a result. Gundyr. It's been a while since I took him on. Let's see if I can't do better this next time. But I think you got an impression, even just from that part of the fight, that Gundyr gets pretty real once you reach his second phase. The aggression just goes way up. He's got a lot of attacks that are relatively difficult to dodge. And he's got some kicks and punches and grabs that obviously you cannot parry. That said, I still think parrying is going to be the easiest way to take care of Gundyr. That or perhaps having a really good shield, which will allow you to tank some of his hits. That and maybe a stronger weapon too. If you don't mind, I think for the rest of this fight I'm going to keep relatively quiet as I try to focus on not making a fool of myself. Well, I say that, but then here we have our second death. I don't know what happened there. I wasn't able to roll off the ground there, which basically condemned me to death. Ho hum. Well, it was pretty damn sloppy, but we got it done. Bleh. I think the Let's Player's curse got to me there, and I got a little too anxious about playing good for my own good. Black Knight Glaive. But we've got him defeated, and the way forward into what should be Firelink Shrine is now open to us. The once beautiful vista is nothing but a black sheet. Let's look at Gundir's soul to see if there isn't any clarification available. Soul of Champion Gundir. Once, a champion came late to the festivities and was greeted by a shrine without fire and a bell that would not toll. Is this the shrine without fire? Are we in some kind of past where Gundir came to link the flame, but he arrived too late and the world descended into an age of dark? And then, as Dark Souls 2 impressed upon us, the cycle continued and a flame was reborn, and here we are again. Did we just pull a Artorias / Manus thing where we are the ones who defeated Gundir all that time ago? We'll have to keep pushing forward into this sunless shrine to get any hope for answers. Waiting for us, ready to stand in our way, are not mere black knights. Are not mere hollows. Fucking pardon that embarrassing gap there. My timer for this episode went off and it broke my chain of thought just enough to make a fool of me. But no mere hollows we're encountering here, but the Black Knights, for some reason, have taken up residence. Now we know they continue to wander the lands. Even after Gwyn linked the fire, they were all left essentially without a lord. What would bring them to this location? I don't expect we're going to find any demons like we did in the titular demon ruins. Well, like everything else, we'll just have to keep it in mind. Sure does look like Firelink Shrine. Let's head off the beaten path here. And maybe not get knocked into the abyss. Perhaps literally by this Black Knight. And what do we have here? By the grave, which in our world Hawkwood left his Farron Greatsword at, we've got an item. And by the way, this grave has a Farron Greatsword on it. Which, what's that all about? If this is in the past, then how long have the Farron Knights, the Abyss Watchers, been functioning? One gets the impression that they existed in the modern era you know, or which is to say the most recent cycle, not a previous one. And at the grave we find the Hornet Ring. Ring associated with the Lord's Blade Siren, or Kirin. One of the four Knights of Gwyn, the First Lord. Boosts critical attacks. The masked Kirin was the only woman to serve in Gwyn's four knights, and her curved sword granted swift death to any and all enemies of the throne. By the way, we are now only down one of the four knight rings. So why was the Hornet Ring situated here at these untended graves by this grave adorned by a Farron Knight sword? I guess there are a lot of ways you could go with speculation on this. I'm of the opinion, at least for now, that it doesn't hold like extreme relevance. Like, I don't think this is the resting place of Kirin. I think more likely, because we're relatively sure the resting place, as long as you didn't kill her in the past anyway, the resting place of Kirin was the grave of Sir Artorias that Sif guarded. So my impression is that the ring is discovered by the chosen undead, used for as long as they use it in their world, and then ends up passing to the hands of another one way or the other, and we just happen to find its most recent resting place, possibly utilized by a member of the Abyss Watchers, or indeed someone else entirely. We also, by the way, just picked up a rather cool item. One that, incredibly, we have the stats to use. The Chaos Blade. This katana with a rusted, stained-looking blade and an almost snakeskin, molten-like sheath is the Chaos Blade. A weapon which we first encountered in Dark Souls 1. It was a weapon that you could create from the boss soul of Chaos Witch Quelaag. And in the cut content of that game, it was a weapon for which Shiva of the East was driven by mad desire to locate and acquire for his own. Which in of itself was a callback to Satsuki, an NPC from Demon Souls who sought the magic blade Makoto, which was a blade with similar properties to the Chaos Blade. Which, by the way, is a cursed sword of unknown origin bearing uncanny streaks on its blade. Attacks also damage its wielder. The sword is not unlike a thing misshapen, granted life, but never welcome in this world. In other words, chaos itself. And it's actually a combination of the Makoto and the Hiltless, in that it's a magic sword sought after by Eastern swordsmen, but unlike the Makoto, which drained your health constantly for as long as you held it, it only drains your health on successful attacks, which is more akin to the behavior of the Hiltless from Demon Souls. Anyway, I think the presence of the Chaos Blade at Firelink Shrine, at least in this time or reality, is the reason why we encountered the Sword Master at the beginning of the game. I think he was searching for this blade, and evidently, if we judge by the summonable phantom, found it at some point. But, alright, I think I've actually gone incredibly over time. So, we are going to explore the rest of the Untended Graves. All the massive lore bombs it has waiting for us next time. Until then, I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I hope you'll join me for the next one. Peace, everyone.